Hi.
Hi. Oh, I can hear you. Hi.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, that's better.
That one's always tricky for me. Welcome to our live stream recording of our DC radio show, Wit and Reason with Alex and Dr. Alexis. We are in a unique time. We usually record on Tuesdays we just switch it to like 9 p.m. on the East Coast, and you all that would be way too late for you. So I appreciate you showing up,
Thank
even
you.
though it is pretty late. But yes, thank you so much. And so here on today's show, we're so excited to have you here because we're going to be diving more into virtual reality and not just the fun benefits of playing, in games, but how we could use virtual reality in learning, in training, but then also in preparing for potential significant life circumstances that we may need, especially like our younger populations, to figure out how to navigate in a healthy and safe way, virtually, ideally, versus having to face it head on in reality. And so you two have such an amazing organization that creates and produces virtual reality for these types of life lessons, if you will. So please tell us more about yourself, what brought you into virtual reality, and a little bit more about what you do. Who would like to get started?
I'll kick off. Firstly, thank you so much for having us. This is such a thrill. We're so excited to be on your show. So how did we get started in virtuality? It's a long story. It's a long story, but I'll condense. So I'm CEO and co-founder of Virtual Decisions, but Virtual Decisions started life in 1992. I'm older than I look, Alexis.
92. Wow.
In the early 90s.
Yeah. When did VR start?
Well, we weren't doing VR then.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we started the company, it was called Round Midnight, which was after the other co-founder's favourite Ella Fitzgerald song. Ella Fitzgerald and Thelonious Monk did this amazing song called Round Midnight. And we were like, well, that's fine. We'll go with that. So we began a company, and it was a creative arts company. So my background is always been in the creative world. And so we started a company that looked very much at using creativity for good. So we would work in schools with young people. We would write performances and plays and productions that were always issue-based and would deal with something important that young people needed to learn more about. And we did that for a long time, a really long time. We worked in schools, we worked with amazing communities across the UK, really interesting, diverse communities that don't engage, maybe. So we did a lot of work with the traveller community in the UK, which are just incredible people. So lots of really interesting creative arts work, always using creativity as a kind of force for change, as a force for good. All across the UK and internationally. We've worked in schools in Dubai, more recently in China. We did lots of work in Shanghai. Always using that. And then in 2018, I had a bit of a revelation. Our facilitators were out performing in a school, and I went to see it. And I looked at the scene that was before me, and our actors were young. They were maybe 23, 24, on stage, pretending to be kind of 13 or 14 to tell the story of the show. And I kind of looked at it and I said, for me, it feels like there's a bit of a disconnect now. Like, I don't think it feels right that we are pretending to understand how young people feel in 2018 as it was then. So I came back to the team and I said, I think we need to change things. I think we need to figure out a way that we can be more relevant to young people, truly engage them, because in that live performance scenario, even though our performances were really engaging and really dynamic, and we used a lot of humor in our performances, and they were interactive, and there was lots of audience participation, even though all that was true, every one of those young people in that audience had the ability to disengage from the subject matter if they wanted to.
Right.
TikTok was a new thing. Kids were making their own content. It was all becoming like they were seeing incredible stuff. And I just felt like we needed to switch things up. I felt like we needed to do things differently. So I came back to the team and I was like, I think we need to do things differently. We need to find a way that really engages and really connects with young people. What do we do?
Right.
I did not think it was going to work. I, for one, in the team said, hang on a second, our background is in theatre. We are arts practitioners. We are immersed in the arts. We are not technical people at all. How on earth are we going to do virtual reality? So I was one of the first to say, I don't think it's going to work. I have eaten my words many times.
Fair enough. That is quite a jump, though, isn't it? From theater and acting all the way to high tech, brand new virtual reality. So how did you all make that jump?
So we really wanted to use all the skills that we had. So also my background as well as doing that is in working in the television and film industry. So I've been a scriptwriter for many years. I've also been a young person's film coach, so I've coached on film sets and TV sets, helped young actors understand their character and the narrative of the story, and help them understand that you don't shoot in sequence, so helping them with their kind of emotional levels at certain points when they're shooting scenes out of order. So my background is in, quite a lot of TV and film. I've directed, so I've got a lot of that background. So when it came to us thinking about what we wanted to do and how to engage young people, we were like, we need to use something that uses all of our skill set. So we need to do something that will really connect with young people, will really resonate with young people, but also uses our skills as creatives. So, we can write our own scripts, we can direct our own content, we can work with young people to create some really amazing and authentic performances. And we wanted it to be real. We wanted it to be engaging, and VR just kind of fitted the whole thing perfectly. So that's how we came to it. And so now, since 2018, we've kind of completely pivoted. Obviously, there was a global pandemic in the middle of all of this, which we don't talk about anymore. But we completely pivoted in 2018 and then focused solely in 2019 on making VR experiences that are changing minds and saving lives is the elevator pitch.
Oh, I love it. That's incredible.
It's good, isn't it?
Yes, I was actually reflecting while I was diving into the work that you do and seeing some of the examples you have on your website, which will have links for our audience to watch as well. And I actually worked as a guest speaker for part of a teen pregnancy prevention program. And that was back in the early 2000s while I was getting my master's. By day, I was in the middle schools and high schools in the health class, teaching them all about safer sex practices and teen pregnancy prevention in every which way possible to keep them engaged. I mean, it's already an interesting topic for them, but then helping them try to think through circumstances that might be challenging for them, where they would need to have uncomfortable conversations about birth control or safer sex practices, or talk about STIs. And that was such a challenging experience for them, because it's we could educate them and we could give them the facts and all the information. And then we could even try to role play scenarios from a worksheet saying here's this scenario and what would you do next, and kind of map it out. But to have, and I don't know if you all are diving into safer sex stuff, but yeah, conversations, but to have some kind of virtual reality where they could actually be placed into a challenging scenario where they'll have to practice setting up, like having those types of conversations and communicating boundaries, and following through with those values and decisions that they want to make for themselves, is such a unique experience for these new generations.
Yeah.
And so from your experience, and then Sam, if you could tell us a little bit more about like what brought you into the VR. It seemed like you were a little hesitant into figuring out like how that was going to work out for you, all that transition from the creative aspect into virtual reality. But like, what has that process been like for you, and this mission of trying to figure out really engaging, useful ways to...
Yeah, because I've gone from the team member that said this isn't going to work to now being the head of development. So I'm behind the development of all of our VR films now, from the initial get-go, the research with the clients that want to create this film, to then the script writing process, the casting, location scouting, all of it right up until the end where I create the wraparound support package. So yeah, it's been a real journey. I've loved every single minute of it. I think that when we first started, I wasn't too sure about the process, and when we were on set for our first film, it looked brilliant. The kids that we'd hired were amazing in their roles. But I think the moment where it switched it for me was when we started actually delivering it in schools. So as Claire said, we used to deliver to audiences of sometimes 300 young people. And as Claire said, they could actively disengage. We shrunk that right down and went to cohorts of 10 young people, where all of them are sat with a headset each, and they are having their own personal journey, where they are watching their VR experience. They can make their own decisions. They're not pressured by their peers because everybody's fully immersed. And when those headsets come off, you have the most incredible and meaningful conversations happen right before your eyes, absolutely immediately, which we'd never achieved with our theatre performances. We achieved engagement, we achieved good feedback, and they enjoyed it. But I think the level of engagement that we experienced straight away when we started our VR experiences were mind-blowing. We had young people come out of their headsets who initially didn't want to even come into the room and didn't want to speak to us.
Right.
Who put the headsets on, get immersed in the program, take the headset off, and suddenly tell you their life story. We were getting serious disclosures from young people from the get-go, saying things like, I carry a weapon, or somebody's asked me to put something under my bed, or someone's asked me to do a job for them, or run a package of drugs for them. And these were things that we'd never heard young people say. So instantly we said, as a company, we're such a small company, we said we can't take this responsibility on for ourselves. We need to expand. We need to include partners to make sure that these young people are safeguarded, that they're properly supported, and that if we do get these serious disclosures, what happens next? We can't just leave the room and say, that was great, did you enjoy the VR? What happens next?
I'm so glad you all were thinking in those terms. Okay,
yeah.
So how did you navigate that? What decisions were made to ensure the safety and ongoing well-being of the participants?
First step for us back in 2019, when we first started delivering it, was we got in touch with our local police force, West Midlands Police. We informed them of our programme, told them what its aims are, and we said we feel like you need to kind of come on board with us and help us deliver this. So very, very early days, that was from youth sergeants going into schools and then offering that ongoing support, whether that's one-to-one mentorship or helping young people find diversionary activities in their area. So that was early days. Now, because the programs have become so successful and we've got evidence to back up how impactful it is, we are working with clients across the country. So we now train organizations to deliver the program for themselves, so they're able to offer that wraparound support.
Great.
We work with services like youth offending and youth justice services that embed our program into their current models of work so that they can continue that amazing work with their young people.
Yeah. And which country is this in, where you bring in
England and Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was trying to think about like how that would apply in the US. Would probably be working more with like nonprofit organizations or people trained in trauma-informed care, counselors. We have like a school counselors that would be good to connect students to if there's any kind of risk or concern there. That is so fascinating that you all have had such immense success, that not only was it an enjoyable experience for the students, but that they felt comfortable enough to disclose like some of these challenges that they've been facing. And then you also mentioned that you have outcomes. There's been research along the way as well. How has that been done?
Yeah, it's been amazing. We've had, because it's so innovative and because there is nobody doing VR prevention and intervention like we are, we've had students that are on their doctoral degrees that are using us as part of their thesis and their studies. I have a student at Long Island University in Brooklyn that is using us as a case study for her capstone project for her doctoral. So yeah, we've had an incredible amount of support and research. Not only do the individual organizations that we work with, they do their own evaluations and collect their own data, but the most recent report, which Sami has been heading up, she'll be able to tell you a little bit more about it. We had a student from the University of Birmingham who's training to be a doctor of clinical psychology, and she wanted to run a study on a Virtual Decisions Knives program. So that program specifically looks at the reasons why young people pick up and carry a knife, and most importantly, the consequences of that. So when the young people are in our experiences, they make choices, they make decisions, but they're in a safe virtual environment. So we actively encourage, I guess, them to experiment while they're in that safe space, because there are no consequences in VR. So they can try things and do things that they might not do in reality. But what that does, it then allows them to see how consequences play out. We're also trauma informed, which I think is really important to say at this point. There are other VR organisations out there that do it in the UK that do work around violence reduction, but quite often it's shock tactics that they use. We are not in that camp. We are very much in the kind of the trauma informed, and it's about decisions. It's about preventing things before they happen. So we're very much in that prevention space of learning how you navigate those situations before it escalates, because that's the last thing everybody wants. So the student from the University of Birmingham was really keen to see how our experiences, one, whether or not there was more engagement from the young people, because like you said, standing up in front of a room full of teenagers trying to get them to engage on subjects that they think you know nothing about, which they're right, I guess, is difficult. So she was really interested in the engagement aspect of VR learning, but also looking specifically around if it increases empathy in young people, because as we all know, empathy levels in young people, particularly young men, are low and don't fully form until they're slightly older. But the findings are really interesting, weren't they, Sam?
Yeah, very interesting. She came in about 2 weeks ago. We've been waiting for these results for about 2 years. It was so exciting. She came in to the office and sat with us and went through all of her findings. And what she found was that young people were really resonating with the characters that we've developed. And that's why it's so important that our characters are realistic, they're authentic, they're believable, they're real young people, raw young people. So what we were finding was that young people's empathy levels would increase for those characters who they may not have felt empathy towards at first, and those that they did like and have empathy for at first, they decrease. That makes it sound bad. I kind of need to explain that. So at the start of our film, we have, for example, we have two characters. We have Reese, who is your best friend. So you're going to feel a lot of empathy towards him. And you have Jordan, who you don't like because Reese doesn't like. So your empathy levels for Reese starts up here. Your empathy levels for Jordan start down here. The more you get to know the program, the more you watch, when you watch the film. And then there's a whole 6 weeks extended learning package that young people would complete after watching the film. Their empathy levels for Reese goes down because he's the one that's carrying a knife. He's the one that is kind of inciting violence. Whereas Jordan, you find out that actually he's a young carer. There's a lot going on for him at home. So when you find out their stories, their empathy levels completely change, and that really really spoke to us, and it obviously made impact on the young people.
Oh, that's very cool. Yes, the connection was slowing down, but I think I could fix that in post. Can you still hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Apologies.
Okay. Oh, it's fine. It happens. That is the risk of live stream.
I hope all that makes sense. It's quite complicated to explain, but yeah, it really, really does make an impact on young people. And what we want is for them to see things from other people's point of view, understand other people's perspectives, that it's not always just black and white. You have to really dig deep and understand what's going on for everybody. And, everyone has their challenges that they're facing. So it's really refreshing for us to see that our program is achieving that, and young people are really considering other people's feelings.
Mm-hmm. And so can you describe for people what it's like for the participants engaging in this type of program from the very beginning, on who makes the decision on bringing virtual reality in, to what kind of subject matter you're covering, to what it's actually like for them? What do the participants actually do, and what do they get to experience?
Yeah, okay. So subject matter depends on who we're partnering with and what they want to achieve from using VR. Our ethos as a company is that we will only make VR experiences that make positive behavioural change for people. So we have 6 experiences at the moment. We have one that centres around gang culture, but more a sort of antisocial behaviour. Gangs in the UK sort of means slightly different things than in the US. For us, it's kind of kids on the street in a gang, so it's more around antisocial behaviour. We have virtual decisions knives, which we spoke about, which is about carrying a weapon and the consequences of that. We have virtual decisions identity, which looks at low-level behaviour issues in young people that could lead to criminality. So young people that are vulnerable, young people that are struggling with their mental health, or struggling with addiction, or with low self-esteem, or with anger issues, or bereavement, substance misuse. So all of those kind of like early sort of warning signs that a young person could be heading towards criminal behaviour. And the final one for young people is virtual decisions influence, which is focused and centres around exploitation and what that looks like for a young person, both criminal and sexual exploitation. So looking at the signs of what grooming looks like for a young person, and how it's changing, I think, particularly in the UK. So those are all for our young people. We have an experience for adult prison leavers, so which is called Virtual Decisions Reconnect. that's done with prisoners about 12 weeks before they're released from custody, and helps them navigate those crucial first hours of release and the decisions and choices that prison leavers have to make when they are released from prison in the UK are varied and multi, and quite often they feel like they're being set up to fail because it's quite difficult, the things they have to do. So being able to kind of practice that in a safe environment, that helps them plan and structure their own release so that their own release is more positive. And then the risk of reoffending is less. And our sixth film, which is also for adults, is for use with long-term psychiatric prisoners that have been in secure units. So they may have been in secure units for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And so our experiences were commissioned by the NHS to help health professionals assess the anxiety levels in their clients around escorted leave, unescorted leave, and living independently. So when prisoners are getting to the point where they're talking about release and talking about leaving the secure unit they've been on for a number of years, they're able to do a VR experience that puts them in that situation in the most realistic way possible, where they can talk about where their anxieties and where their worries are and where their trigger points are, and actually what they don't feel comfortable with, but what they do feel comfortable with as well, and navigate their way through those scenarios in virtual reality, and then really discuss and talk about it when they come out of the VR headset, so that those plans can be put in place again to make that leave more positive experience for that client. So those are the issues. So the issues come to us by whoever kind of contacts us, really. We are currently looking and really interested in making one around sexual harassment, sexual consent, sexual misconduct, incivility generally, I think, around women. That's a really important title for us. But yeah, kind of whoever comes to us and says, we have a problem, can you help us with a solution? And if it fits with our ethos, then we'll do it.
Awesome. That's incredible. And I'm curious about the research. Has there been anything done as far as like follow-up after participating in the program, 6 months, year or two, if participants did have the opportunity to carry out the skills that they maybe learned or practiced in VR, if they were actually able to carry them out in real life? Is there anything around that yet?
There's some, isn't there, Sam?
Yeah, you know, it's a really hard thing to measure though, because for example, our youth programs, especially our virtual decisions knives program, we want to make sure that every young person that goes through our experience, there's no chance of them ever going home and picking up a knife. But if there's ever a young person that's in our sessions that it might be thinking, should I start carrying a weapon with me to keep myself safe? We're never going to know that unless they tell somebody, which most likely they won't. So we can't measure how many young people choose not to pick up a knife because of our program. If that makes sense.
What we can measure is that we had a stat from a police officer in West Midlands Police in the region where we are. So our knife crime experience has been sort of used quite widely within our local region. Knife crime statistics have fallen over the last 2 years, which is the amount of time that we've been I mean, we can't pinpoint that, but it's true that there is a really strong intervention that's being used in this region, with lots and lots of schools, with lots of young people on out of court disposal orders that have been already arrested for an offence, probably carrying a weapon. Our experience is embedded into their rehabilitation to help them understand, to make better choices. And knife crime incidents have gone down in the last 2 years in our region. So
wow, there you go. It'd be so cool if you could follow up with the participants after the fact. I know that's doing this type of studies, or I mean, just doing the study itself while exploring, you know, the validity of the program is expensive enough, let alone let's follow these people for a couple of years and check in with them and see, you know, if they did have that opportunity, you know, like how did they end up navigating it? And, you know, was their experience in VR, you know, part of that decision-making process?
Yeah. I mean,
Of course, some of our clients do that.
Anecdotally, we have a lot, don't we, Sam?
Yeah.
Anecdotally, we hear stories from customers of ours that are using it around the UK, where there was an incident in the north of England where 16 young people took a weapon into a school. So they all had weapons on them. Mm-hmm. And the school found out, and that's in the UK, that's immediate exclusion. So they're gone. They're out of school. That's it. They cannot go back. And the police had just bought our experience and were using our experience, and they approached the school and they said, look, because as soon as a young person is excluded from mainstream school, they drop off the radar. They are then vulnerable, right? They're vulnerable. No one's looking out for them. They're not safe anywhere if their parents aren't at home, or if they don't have, you know, good parental support. Then no one knows where they are. No one is looking out for them. And who does look out for them are people that are on the streets that are recruiting young people for criminal gain. So they become very, very vulnerable. So there's a huge push in the UK to keep young people in education, keep young people in school. So when these 16 young people brought a knife into school, the police approached and said, look, can we just down timetable them for a week? We'll do the VR experience with them. Then we'll work through all of the extended support packages and have all those conversations with these young people just to give them a fighting chance. Can we see if it makes a difference? So they did. And 14 out of the 16 had their behaviour had changed significantly enough that they were allowed to stay in mainstream school. So that in itself is huge. And I'm pretty sure they're all still in that school. And this was last year, because we would have been told if they weren't. We work very closely with that police officer that delivers that work. She would have told us that if it hadn't worked, and because they want it to work for themselves, because for them it's a really important tool, and they want it to be successful. So anecdotally, we have lots of like incredible case studies, but you're so right, Alexis, that long-term piece of work is a whole thing. Yeah.
It's probably there. I mean, there's enough research to kind of support that, yes, what we get to kind of try out virtually has its impact on our behaviors. And even if we're just kind of like old school without virtual reality, if we're just kind of role playing or thinking through these scenarios and thinking through ahead of time on like how we would navigate them, and then kind of like practice them with somebody, that's helpful too. And then you bring in virtual where you actually get to like be really immersed in this experience, has its benefits. I understand some of the limitations would be if someone gets what is it called, like a cyber sickness from wearing it long, and then also if there's any visual impairments, might not be able to use it. And then the expense of getting all the equipment, getting I don't know if there's like a licensing for the program and what they're using. So I'm curious, as two experts in the field now, how do you see virtual reality moving forward and making it more accessible for everyone, and especially now as it becomes more common?
Yeah, I mean, those things about kind of safety in the headsets, we've got to be really considerate of that, because we are working with young people. So we make sure that our experiences are around about 10 to 15 minutes long, so that you're not in the experience for too long. It doesn't cause any eye strain. Yeah, we make sure that our experiences are short enough for young people. We also, when we're filming, we're very conscious of keeping the camera completely still, because it's as soon as, I don't know if you've done any VR, Alexis, but as soon as you have a VR experience where you're moving, whether you're on a roller coaster or in a spacecraft and everything is moving around you, that's what creates motion sickness. That's what creates the nausea. So we make sure that our camera is completely still throughout the film. So I could count on one hand the thousands of young people that we've done the VR experience with. I could count on one hand the amount of people that have taken the headset off.
I only had like a zombie video game experience, and
they scare me. They scare me.
Around and
yeah. But yeah, you're right. Things like visual impairments. I think that's and audible impairments as well. We have to think about young people with SEN, special educational needs, or sometimes English as a second language. So there's been lots of people that have said, could you do subtitles or could you do dubbed films? These are all very, very possible.
Okay.
And these are all things that we're looking into. Obviously, all costs money, but they're all very, very possible. And I can't remember, what was the other thing you asked?
And then the how it's financed and funded.
Yeah. So our business model is a licensing model. So we create the programs and then we license them to people across the UK. So people buy our experiences. We use Meta Quest headsets. We're on the 3S at the moment, which is a really good headset. We have a really good relationship with Meta Device donate to us. So we have they gave us a huge amount of headsets because they really support what we do using their headsets and hardware for social good. So we have a great relationship with Meta. So thanks, Meta. We also and then organizations license those programs from us. I think what's really important is they are not cheap to make and they're really high quality. So our experiences are not cheap to license, but what they are is really good and really effective. And actually, if you use them in a really productive way, they're really cost effective. So what we hear mostly from people is like, we will section off a corner of our budget because we know it works. Oh, it's a really useful tool. So they see the value in it, which I think is really important. So I think it's because it's a really good product and you do pay for that.
Yeah.
But it's worth it because you're getting results. It's not just throwing some money away on another PowerPoint or another worksheet that actually has no effect and the young people do not engage with. It's having a real world effect. It's making positive behavioural change. And that's exactly what they're, and it fits in with frameworks for youth justice systems, for being able to work and engage with young people in a meaningful way. Because what they're finding is that young people are just disengaging. They don't want to hear an adult talk to them and tell them not to do something anymore. They don't. You need new ways to engage with young people. They don't want to be judged, and rightly so, who does? So our experiences just make all of that so much easier. So actually, it's not just about the effects that the VR itself is having on the behavioural change of the young people that it's being used with. It's about fostering that better relationship between the professional and the person they're working with and their client. Because going in with something like a VR headset, it just makes that relationship it gets off to a much more positive start, which is worth its weight in gold. We had a probation officer talk to us and saying exactly that they couldn't get through to this young person. They were very closed, they were very angry, they were really struggling to kind of make any connection with them, but they brought a headset in and just put it on the table, and the young person was the one that said, "What's that?" and made the first movement to kind of like engage with it, which hadn't happened before. All my lights have gone off. So I think that's really, really important. And I think it's not just about how it benefits the young people, it's about how it benefits the whole organization and makes professionals' jobs easier.
That's incredible. I appreciate the work that you two do. What do you recommend if anyone's interested in connecting with you or your programs? especially if they're here in DC or the States, if that's possible at all.
Yeah, of course. No, we'd love to. We have some connections that we're working with in the States. The States is a really interesting market for us. Like I said, we're working with Long Island University, and a couple of other things are in the pipeline to bring our experiences to the US. So yeah, please get in touch. Look at the website, virtualdecisions.co.uk, and reach out to us. And we're happy to have conversations, aren't we, Sam?
Oh, definitely. You can find us both on LinkedIn as well. We're on all the platforms. We're on Instagram.
All of them.
We're on Facebook. You know, we're teching now.
You're on TikTok now?
Are we on TikTok, Sammy? No, I don't think we are.
No, we're not on TikTok. No, because I don't know how to use TikTok.
Fair enough. Oh, well, that's great. Thank you so much for your time again, and for breaking all of this down for us, and for sharing your story and mission with us. It sounds like such an incredible program for youth, and I'm glad that we're advancing from the paper worksheets to.
Yeah. So are we. It's been so lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Look, if we're ever in DC, we'll pop by and bring a headset with us, and you can have a go. You could be a 14-year-old in a park in Birmingham.
I'm sure it'll be better than my zombie VR experience.
Yes, it will be, definitely.
Less movement and fear. Scared shot. Well, thank you both very much. Enjoy the rest of your night, and thank you so much for joining us at this hour. Thank you.
Oh, it's been so nice to meet you. Thank you, Alexis. Please keep in touch.
Yes, we definitely will. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.